Hi, I'm SargoDevel. Welcome to my channel. This is a series of videos about Cables Workbench for FreeCAD. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you 3 simple examples of how to route and run cables in different scenarios. First is the short cable with terminal strips. Second shows how to route cables inside walls. And the third demonstrates cable with connectors secured to the base plate using clamps. So let's start. I will show you first how to create a cable with just a few clicks. We need a WireFlex, which will be a base wire, and default cable profile with 3 conductors with a gauge of 1.5 mm. Select WireFlex, then profile holding the control key and create a cable with cable command. Here is our first cable, somehow gray, so we can give it some nice colors. There is a predefined set of materials here. Let's create it. Inside materials we have multi-material designed for free wire power cable. I assign it to the material property of a cable. And that's it. We have a nice, colorful cable created. Its shape can be still modified by changing its base and subwires. I hide the cable shape for a while. I double-click the base wire to enter edit mode, add a point to it, and move the endpoint to the new position. Here is a new base shape. Exit edit mode and recompute. I add 3 terminal strip connectors, select a point in 3D view, then select connector command and profile. Connector appears at the selection point in the 3D view. I repeat this for other terminal strips. Then move them to final positions with the move command. They also can be rotated with a transform tool. Here are the 3 terminal strips ready to connect to cable wires. Edit cable base wire again and lift the end vertex about 15 mm using the Z movement. In the next step I connect subwires to terminal strips using the command attach wire to terminal. Select the end of wire, then terminal entry point holding the control key, and then run the command. Wires are being nicely attached to terminals. The wires might touch, so I will adjust the shape of one of them slightly. Enter edit mode by double-click. Add vertex and lift it a bit in Z direction. Exit edit mode. We can finally show the cable shape and recompute the document. It looks almost fine. The final step is to smooth out the shapes so that the model resembles a real cable. Select the cable and go to its properties. We can keep the base wire type but change its fillet radius to 30 mm. Then select subwire's path type and change it to B-spline K. The cable shape looks pretty well now. Let's have a look at it from different angles. It can be reshaped at any time if needed. We can even move connectors if we need. It looks like the wires are firmly attached to them. The next example illustrates the process of creating cable routing inside walls. Let's start by creating a simple set of two connected walls. Additionally, let's make it transparent for better visibility of our cables and boxes. First, I will create two cable boxes. I select one point on the wall, then holding the Ctrl key, I run cable box command and I set the proper reference plane for a new box. Then I move the box 200 mm along the edge of the wall. Next, I move the box 300 mm down the wall. Second box will be created in a corner with the reference plane proper for second wall. We can always rotate the box later if needed. Then I move the box 300 mm along the edge of the wall. And again 300 mm down the wall. Additionally, I create the support line, which will be the entry point for a cable. It will be 80 mm below the top edge of the wall. At this moment, it's better to hide the wall for better access of other objects. I select first point, then holding the Ctrl key, the second point, and run the WireFlex command. I do the same to create second WireFlex between boxes. This way, we have two base wires for cables routing. To better illustrate the method, the cables will be routed along the top of the wall, with vertical sections running down to the junction boxes. I will unhide the wall and create a set of additional support lines. First one is rotated parallel to the wall and moved 200 mm along the wall. Then moved down to the level of the entry point. Next, I change the length of support line segments to 10 mm. This will be needed later. Then I create the copy of last support line and move it down 100 mm. I create the next support line in the corner and move it 300 mm along the wall and down to the level of previous support lines. Then I make the copy of the last support line and move it down to the level of support line on the first wall. Finally, I create the last support line in the corner and move it down to proper level. Here we have all needed hooks for routing our base wires for cables. Now I again hide the wall and rotate view to see the plane of the first wall. Then I add a new vertex to the first WireFlex with Add Vertex command. Here we see the keyboard shortcut WA for this command. I will use it later to speed up the process. Then I select the created vertex and single vertex of support line holding the Ctrl key. Then I run the command attach vertex. Here we can remember that keyboard shortcut for this command is WT. I add another vertex and attach it to the vertex of the next support line. This way, I made the route for the first cable. I will use now keyboard shortcuts to route the second base wire. Select WireFlex, WA to create vertex. Select vertices with Ctrl key, WT, and so on with next vertices. With a little practice, this method allows you to route the wires very quickly. And there you go! We have run the second wire successfully. Now it is the time to make cables out of base wires. I make the cable profile first. I choose the 2.5 mm gauge and press OK. I select WireFlex and the created profile, holding the Ctrl key. Then I run the cable command. Then select next WireFlex and the same profile, holding the Ctrl key. Run the cable command again. I will adjust the shape of cables now. Select both cables and change base fillet radius to 20 mm. The cables look nicer now. I will also add cable material set. Here we have multi-material designed for 3 wires cable. Select again both cables and attach selected material to the material property. The cables have proper shape and colors now. In the final step, I unhide the wall again. We see that cables are routed along the surface of the walls. I will push them inside the walls. Let's hide the wall now and select support lines on the first wall. Then move them 20 mm into the wall in X direction. Let's do the same with second wall. Select proper support lines. Then move them 20 mm in Y direction. We can unhide the wall and see the result. The cable has been moved into the wall. At the end, we can hide all support lines so they don't block the view of our model. The same can be done unchecking Show Sublines property of both cables. Here is the final result. The next example demonstrates the process of creating cable with connectors secured to the base plate using clamps. Let's create the base plate first. Let it be a square with a side length of 200 mm and a thickness of 10 mm. In the plate corner, I create the first connector of type Molex KK254. Then I move it 40 mm in Y direction, minus 30 mm in X direction, and finally 30 mm in Z direction. I also rotate the connector in the right direction. I create the second connector in the opposite corner of the base plate. Select the type D-sub DE9 pin female and then move it to final position in the similar way as I did with first connector. At the end, I rotate it in the desired direction. For convenience, I'm changing the connector names to more descriptive ones. By the way, we see that the names of all sub-objects have been changed accordingly. Now it's time to put some clamps on the base plate. I click on the selected point on the plate and then create sample type clamp. I create 4 clamps this way. Two of them I'm rotating 90 degrees. Then let's prepare to base wire creation. While holding down the Control key, I select the points that will form the wire. Then run the WireFlex command. This creates the WireFlex object attached to selected vertices. Now it's time to make a proper cable profile. I choose the thin YTDY profile with 3 wires and 0.2 mm gauge. Having this, I select the WireFlex, then Profile, holding down the Control key. Then run the cable command. The created cable has predefined subcolors. We need to change them to meet our goal. Change L1 to TXD, N to GND, and PE to RXD. Then I change the cable name to Signal Cable. All the subwires have now proper names. Before connecting the wires, I'm hiding the connector and cable body. Here I select the last edge of wire and terminal, holding the Control key. Then run the command Attach wire to terminal. I repeat this for other 2 wires. Now let's zoom in the second connector and hide its body, leaving the terminals visible. We can see that each terminal has its pin name predefined. These pin names correspond to names of subwires of our cable. Let's connect them the same way we did for previous connector. Now we can unhide cable and connectors. Then I will prepare colors for the cable. First, create the set of materials. Find the multi-material for 3 wires power cable and make a copy of it. Make sure that Auto Select is unchecked and deselect all, then select only the cable multi-material. Select Materials group and paste the copy. Rename the new multi-material and double-click it. Here I have to rename materials with the same names as I did in subcolors property of our signal cable. Then I'm adding them proper colors. Next I'm deleting unneeded second PE material. And finally change the color for the cable jacket. Then select the cable and assign the new multi-material to its material property. Recompute and voila! We have the cable in the colors we choose. The last step is to set the proper shape for the cable. For the base wire path type, I'm selecting B-spline K. This sets the main shape for cable jacket. For subwires path type, I select the B-spline P, which is the best choice in this case. Here are the results. On both sides of the cable. The cable is ready. At the end, I want to show you what will happen when we move one of clamps in any direction. The cable follows the movement and adjusts its shape accordingly. Let's put away the grid and hide the subwires. This will organize our view a little. That's all for this episode. I strongly encourage you to experiment with making your own cables. See you! I invite you to watch the next videos of this series. If you liked this video and if you are satisfied with using Cables Workbench, you can support me through my Ko-fi page, ko-fi.com/sargodevil, ko-fi.com/sargodevil. Your support will help me continue developing this tool. Thank you.